All right, so it's been a while. Sorry, I haven't posted anything for a week now. It's been one of those weeks. Anyway, we're back. This time I thought we'd talk a little bit about planning and periodization and just go through a little bit about how I do it. So let's get going. All right, so periodizations. And there are lots of different ways you can break up a season. Lots of different ways you can do this. This is just my take on it a little bit. The way I look at it, there are some basic building blocks around our season planning. We start from the bottom and work up. So obviously we've got our session plan, which is our warm up, preset, main set, subsets, cool downs, whatever way you want to break it down. That's where we can be really creative. We can work within our framework, and we can be as thought provoking and creative as we want to be. I'm not very creative, so these things we do the same warm up every day. We do a similar swim down every day, and I try to find a little bit of variety in the rest of it. So that's our session plans. Our micro cycles, which is our weekly plan. For us, it's made up of 8 pool sessions and 3 gym sessions. And depending on when we are in the season, will depend on the content of that weekly plan. So this is where we can add the type of training, and whether we do lots of volume, lots of intensity, high intensity, low volume. That's where we can be a little bit creative. It depends whether we're at the start of the season or in a more taper phase. Okay, but a microcycle is your weekly plan. The phases is a little bit out of sync, but it'll become clear why. Phases of training. We have a base training period, which lays the foundation at the start of each cycle. And then we have a competition period, which starts with some race prep and usually finishes with a race or the main events of that cycle. A phase is made up of 2, 3 mesocycles. Okay, now a mesocycle is usually between 3 and 5 weeks. It can be as long as you want it to be. All right, basically. I tend to be between 3 and 5 weeks. And they're there for a specific goal. So if we look at the base training period, if it's got 3 mesocycles in that base training period, then the first mesocycle, the goal of those weeks is to develop and complete general conditioning. So all of the weekly plans and the session plans will be geared towards completing general conditioning. The second mesocycle, the next little block of work, will build on that, and it'll be there to develop specific basic abilities. So backstrokers will do more backstroke, breaststrokers will do more breaststroke, they'll do more complex drill patterns, they'll start to think more about the skills that they need for their specific events. All right, and then in the third, if you have time, the third mesocycle is there to develop specific competition skills. So stroke patterns and stroke rates and kick counts for your specific events. Now, sometimes our mesocycles are a little shorter, and that first mesocycle we can sometimes drop out because we can build on what we've done in previous cycles and previous sessions. So we don't always have to have that develop and complete general conditioning, because we can build on the conditioning we've been doing all season. Then usually for me, around 15 weeks makes a macro cycle. A macro cycle is usually for me between 3 and 5 mesocycles, and it usually ends with a meet. So that's our cycle. So this year we went from 21st of August to European short course, then from European short course to trials to Olympics would have been the plan. But those are macro cycles. Okay, and each macro cycle builds to make a season. That's your annual plan. Your annual plan is a season of 2, 3, or 4. Well, 1, 2, 3, 4 if you're very specific from macro cycles into an annual plan. For me, generally speaking, our age groupers run on 1, maybe 2. Our better age groupers run on 2 macro cycles, where we would go for Dave McCall maybe in February sometime, and then the summer. Our younger age groupers would not cycle their season, it would be one 44 to 46 week cycle through the season, and that would be their cycle, but it's still their annual plan. Okay, so that's kind of the way we break it down. Okay, so with that in mind, we're going to have a little look at this year's cycle plan. All right, so obviously we're not in a position where we can actually plan next season because it's still a little bit up in the air. So what I thought I would do here, I'd just like to be prepared. So I have this little dashboard that's customizable. And I thought I'd go through last season. This is just kind of how I prepared last season. So the top, just to make it look pretty, we got the team logo, team name, and the season start date. Okay. This, I like to start my weeks on a Wednesday because our trials started on a Wednesday, and it meant that it could run through. So last year, our first Wednesday of the year was on the 2nd of January. So I just adjust this to say 2nd of January. This year, it's the 1st of January. So if we change that to 1st of January 2020, then the periodization year changes 2021, and the start dates, all of these dates change to match up to the Wednesdays. All right, this little scroller bar means that I can change the start date. If you look at the bottom, I can change the start date for this coming season. So I can start it depending on when we get back in the water. I can change that. All right, but anyway, let's go back to last season's plan, and we'll run through just how I endeavored to set it up. All right, so the first thing I did was we have to decide whether we're running, how many cycles we're fitting into this annual plan. All right, now last year we had European short course trials and then in theory Olympics. So we decided that we were going to run in a 3-cycle season. So to save me a little bit of time this morning, I've already got this subdivided up, but basically what I would do is I would come in here and I would go, where are the dates for these meets? All right, and highlight them in green. Okay, so we have European short course, trials, and Olympics, which gives us a 3-cycle season. So I would put those in here very simply. Cycle 1, cycle 2, cycle 3. I'm just going to change that because it's rotating up and I don't particularly want it to rotate flat level. So that's cycle 1, 2, and 3. Okay. At the end of each little cycle, we have to decide what type of training. I divide this very simply. It's not complicated. We have a base training period and a competition period. And we do that the whole way through. Base competition. So at the end of each cycle, we have a race and racing. All right. Now, from there, we got our mesocycles. All right. I personally, this is just the way I like to work. I like to divide them into 4 or 5 week blocks. So we have in this first little cycle, I ran a 5-week block and then 4, 3. Okay. And the microcycles are just the weeks within them. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's the way that would pan out. And then we have the type of work that I would put in. Now, so the focus for the week, I like this to be a little bit jazzy. So we have some drop-down files. So that first week is usually a prep week. Okay. Second week, it's an endurance week. We have another endurance week. maybe a quality week. All right, and this little bar at the bottom is very rough. I like just to have some nice graphical representations of the type of work and the way intensity goes up a little bit. So you just go through, I can't really remember whether this is exactly the way I did it or not, but something like this. And we go into our last little block. We had 2 weeks of, we had 2 weeks of taper. And then a rich week. Something like that, okay? And then, yeah, so that's kind of how I structure it. So what we got to do next is we got to look at how many meters we do in each session. I've already got it programmed in how many meters I like to do in each week. So then we've got to look at how many training units in the week. And generally speaking, I like to put in 8 the whole way. So that tells me how many times a week they're in the water. It lets me know what their volume is for the week. As you can see, we try to stay reasonably consistent. At the side here, we've got 500,000, 500,000 meters in the first cycle. Right, with that, no more than 44,000 in a week. Something along those lines. Underneath here, this is training blocks within. All right, and I literally can't remember, but I just make a note. Aerobic capacity, just base general aerobic capacity. I might do 4 of them in the first week, with 1 that has a spike of anaerobic capacity, 2 anaerobic capacity sets, and 4 speed sets. Something along those lines. And I literally go through each week and I say how many sets within the sessions am I planning to run on each little block. And I fill that in like that. All right, so that's the season there, filled in. Okay, as you can see, I've went the whole way through the season there, and then just done the same thing, just repeated it. We have 3 cycles, and that's the way the plan was for it to work out this way. This little thing at the top, all right, you can see the blue and greens in here. Now the way that works is the blue is training camps and the green is competitions. And at the bottom we have a little drop down thing here. So we have competitions. We can put in anything. All right, so if we've gone to Antwerp in here, we can add in dates for the Antwerp meet. As you can see, it adds dates in at the top. Okay. So we can go through the season, and these are just little drop downs, which are linked to the cells above. So if we want to put in a meet anywhere, we just stick it in. All right. So we have Ulster short course here. We've got European short course and Irish short course. We have the Antwerp meet, which we didn't go to. We have Lisbon and Dave McCulloch. And then Irish long course was planned in here. Okay. And then that's the back end of the season. It never really happened. And we also have camp dates. All right. So the blue, again, same principle. Little drop downs at the bottom. You put in dates of the meet, the dates of the camps. This was a Swim Ireland camp. This was a club camp. This was a little camp that we planned to go on a couple of days just leading into Lisbon. And at the end, that would have been a club camp again. And you just add them in. Okay, and it just populates this automatically. All right, which is nice, I think. In here we have aerobic capacity with a spike of anaerobic capacity. Aerobic capacity 2 I do with a little bit of aerobic power at the front end of it. Then we have anaerobic capacity and speed. As you can see, we put speed in pretty much the whole way through the season. Aerobic power, anaerobic power, and then in competition, aerobic power in competition, and anaerobic power in competition. So these two would be different. This is really Danielle's Connor's plan. The aerobic power in competition would be 400 meters and above, which they very rarely do. As you can see in here, actually Irish, of course, she swam a little bit more than that. That's how many of those types of work done, and that was a little bit more as well. The plan in Dave McCulloch, there was quite a lot of racing, and again in Irish long course, quite a lot of racing. Okay. Now, so that's kind of the way I go around setting it up. At the very bottom, the last little bit is our test sets. So these work on the same principle. We do our aerobic capacity test set. You can see it highlights in red. And we do that at the first week of the first Wednesday of every mesocycle. So just go across, fill in that first Wednesday. All right. The max heart rate, I do the following Saturday. So it's 10 days later. No real reason for it. It's just that's when the pool space is available. So we stick those in. And the pulse points, I do the pulse points the last Friday of the cycle. So generally it's about 4 weeks apart. The last Friday of the cycles, unless it falls into the competition. And the cold swims, I do 10 days later. So just stick those in as well. The speed work, I do immediately, 3 weeks immediately prior to racing. Not the week before, sorry, not the week before. 2, 3, and 4 weeks out. And I do those on a Friday as well, I think. It might be Tuesday, actually. Yeah, I think it's a Tuesday. Just because there's space on a Tuesday, not for any other reason. And there's 3 of them. And again, we didn't actually do them this year, but that's where the plan was. The efficiency work gets done again every week, Wednesday, for the 8 weeks before we race. And we just go back and drop them in. And I've talked through in some of the other videos around where and why I do these test sets. So if you want to check out those other videos, there'll be a link up here if I can get it to work. And we just check them out. You can see how we run the test sets. But that's what it starts to look like. So this at the top is fully automated. That means that it all fits on one screen. We get to see the whole season. And all I need to do is change the dates from one season to the next, and see how that plans out. So that's it filled in now all the way through. And as you can see, the red at the top is the test sets, the blue camps, green is meets, and that's kind of the way I like it. And we have an overview of the whole season, and it fits into one page. All right, and it allows me to be able to change it. It allows me to be able to update it from year to year without having to retype it. It allows me to see the dates that we put the tests on. At the bottom here, it also allows Ryan to put in the training units for the gym as well, the type of work that he does in the gym. And yeah, so that's kind of it. I think it looks pretty nice. The volume, as you can see, is interactive. So again, if we put in 8 sessions instead of the 11, everything's kind of interactive. I like it to just look reasonably good. So that's how I do it. I mean, it works for me. It changes from year to year to make it look a little bit prettier. I like graphs. I like color. So That's why I put it together that way. But it's important that whatever way we present our data, whatever way we present our plan, that we have a plan. All right, we can't work without plans. It doesn't matter what your philosophy is. It doesn't matter what your coaching philosophy is. You need a plan, and you need to find a way to implement that plan and explain that plan to the athletes in a way that makes sense to you, first and foremost, and then makes sense to them so that they can buy into it. And once you're able to do those things, then you can start to look at expressing yourself a little bit more. And that's kind of how I do it. So hopefully you enjoyed that a little bit today, and hopefully we'll get back to being a little bit more regular on these. But in the meantime, stay safe, stay home. We're in this together. We'll get out of it, no problems. And I hope to look forward. It's too early in the morning. I look forward to seeing you all on poolside sometime in the future. Stay safe.